Well, we told you earlier about a House hearing over what some are calling a power grab by the president. Questions being raised about whether he's pushing the Constitution aside, kind of picking and choosing which laws he wants to enforce, adding to others in some cases with health care, and what all that means if Congress cannot stop it.
What's America look like in the next 25 years if we have executive upon executive that builds upon this continual stretching or disregard of the constitutional restraint, that disrespect for Article 1?
I have great trepidation of where we are heading because we are creating a new system here, something that is not what was designed. We have this rising fourth branch in a system that's tripartite. The center of gravity is shifting, and that makes it unstable. And within that system, you have the rise of an Uber presidency. There could be no greater danger for individual liberty. And I really think that the framers would be horrified by that shift.
If the people come to believe that the government is no longer constrained by the laws, and they will conclude that neither are they. That is why this is a very, very dangerous sort of thing for the president to do, to wantonly ignore the laws, to try to impose obligations on people that the legislature did not approve.
Very powerful testimony in there yesterday. And I'm joined now by Republican Congressman Bob Goodlatte, who is the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee that held that hearing. Congressman, good morning. Good to have you with us today.
Good morning, Martha. Good to be with you and your viewers.
You know, just sort of take everybody back for a moment and give everybody at home the background as to why you felt it necessary to have this hearing in the first place.
Well, I think the public has a growing awareness, but not as aware as I think they should, of the growing assertion of power by this president to do things to change laws. That's not his responsibility. That's the Congress's clearly delegated responsibility to write the laws. But even with Obamacare, his signature legislation, when he finds things in it that he doesn't like, he rewrites the law, even though the law itself doesn't give him any authority to do that. And so it's very, very concerning. It's not just in health care issues. It's with regard to immigration and EPA regulations and a whole host of other areas.
Yeah, some examples might be the extension of the employer mandate and also moving some of the money that was supposed to be used for prevention over to the creation of exchanges. And the critics believe that neither one of those things was in the law. And when you look at Article 2, Section 3, it says that the president shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed. That's his job, is to carry out the laws that have been passed by Congress. But, you know, I'm sure that the president, who was a constitutional professor himself, would say that he is well within the law, and others might point to previous executive orders and say, you know, presidents do this all the time.
Well, I think our constitutional law professor president needs a refresher course on the separation of powers provisions in our United States Constitution, because clearly it is the Congress that has delegated that authority. Now, the phrase you just referred to, shall take care to faithfully execute the laws, doesn't say to perfectly execute the laws. So presidents do have authority to use some discretion, but when you rewrite a whole section of the law and say, well, we're going to find a way to provide funds for an area that the law didn't provide it for, or we're going to take the vast majority of Americans under this and extend for a year the timetable under which the employers have to comply, which, by the way, I and many others who want to repeal the law, we certainly agreed with delaying that, and we in fact passed a bill to do just that. However, instead of saying that's great, the Congress is doing the right thing, the president threatened to veto it and went ahead and did it on his own. That is clearly not within his authority.
Yeah, it's very interesting because, as you just say, you know, in some of these cases, these are things that members of Congress wanted, but for some reason the president didn't want to go through that route. He wanted to just pass it on his own and move it through. What happens with all this now? So you've brought more attention to it. These stunning quotes from Cannon and Turley yesterday before Congress. What happens now?
Well, we will continue to raise public awareness about the issue. are a number of remedies. Obviously, Congress has the ability to cut off funds. We have the ability to hold these kind of hearings to shine a spotlight. We have the ability, people do in general, to bring lawsuits. There's discussion about amending the law to improve the standing of the Congress itself to bring lawsuits challenging abuse of authority by the executive branch. But the most important thing is to raise the awareness of the American people. And the most important thing of all, in my opinion, is that this needs to be bipartisan. And we need to have more people standing up, not for the particular policy issue that they like or dislike. After all, Jonathan Turley, the professor that you cited, he is a supporter of Obamacare. But he's very concerned about the way that this president is going about exercising his authority.
Pardon me for interrupting, but how many Democrats do you think you would have on board?
Well, at this point in time, not many, if any, but I think hearings like this help to bring the question to bear, and that is, this isn't about the underlying policy, it's about the power of the Congress, the elected representatives of the people, to write the laws of the land as the Constitution intended. And that process is not a pretty one, it's not an easy one, there's lots of hard-fought debates and lots of negotiations, but the fact of the matter is that's how our system's designed, and if instead the president can bypass that and simply write it himself, because after all, he doesn't have a debate in the Oval Office about what he wants to do. He does what he wants to do. Then you no longer have representative democracy. So that's what's at stake here.
You've raised some very important points, and their testimony yesterday was also really quite stunning in its scope. Thank you very much for being here, Congressman. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Martha.